Greetings and welcome to Converging Streams, Interfaith Fellowship in Our Modern World. Our program is a production of the Muncie Interfaith Fellowship and the Unitarian Universalist Church of Muncie. Today's lesson is entitled Hospital Chaplaincy and the Interfaith Experience. Please welcome Reverend George Wolfe.
Hello and welcome to Converging Streams. Two types of ministries in American society today that have come to require an interfaith background on the part of the minister are ministries in the United States military and ministries at American hospitals. In the armed services today, for example, we have men and women serving from all of the major faith traditions, which include Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and Baha'i. Similarly, in American hospitals, people from a variety of religious traditions have need for medical attention. Today we are pleased to have with us Reverend Robert Burton, who is the hospital chaplain at Ball Memorial Hospital in Muncie, Indiana. Reverend Burton, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
I thought we could start perhaps by having you talk a little bit about your background, how you came to the hospital chaplaincy.
Okay. I'm a recovering Southern Baptist. I grew up in Tennessee, and more Baptists there than there are people. So that's my heritage. Even in college, I remember reading about clinical pastoral education, which is the training model that hospital chaplains go through, and I was drawn to that. And so I attended a seminary in North Carolina that was near a training center and was able finally to do a year of residency as a chaplain at Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So that's where my roots are. And I've been a chaplain for really 30 years. I've served state hospital in the mental health system in Tennessee, and then I was at a Catholic hospital in the Memphis area. And then I spent 13 years at an American Baptist affiliated hospital in Evansville, Indiana, and then came to Ball about 5 years ago.
Now, I know that many years ago, hospital chaplaincy really dealt more with what is ecumenical as opposed to what is interfaith. Isn't that correct?
That's pretty accurate. I've been in one of the professional chaplains organizations since the early 70s. I remember when I first became a part of that, the group was mostly white, mostly Protestant, mostly male, and mostly Christian. And the complexity of that has really changed. I was at Chaplains Convention recently in Dallas, and there's very much an interfaith presence. I would probably say the majority would still be from a Christian orientation, but it's very visible presence from other faith traditions. I've talked with chaplains who come from a Sikh background. I've talked with several who are Buddhist. You have that kind of opportunity for interchange, and of course in the breakout sessions you get a chance to sit down and talk with people from other faith traditions. I've been to some workshops on Buddhist meditation, those kinds of things.
I see. Perhaps we should explain to our listeners that the word ecumenical really refers to bringing denominations together within Christianity.
That's right.
Whereas the word interfaith now comes to mean bringing people together from distinct faith traditions, such as Muslims and Christians, or Muslims and Jews, Christians and Jews, Hindus and Buddhists, Hindus and Christians, and so forth.
And one of the things, I was at a church-affiliated hospital before coming here, and while in that kind of setting, there's certainly a need to and an openness to embrace a variety of religious traditions, there's still the sense of mission that's connected with the faith tradition on which the hospital is founded. And, of course, that's obvious, especially in Catholic hospitals. And Ball Hospital is a secular institution, so I think I've been more aware, or experientially I've been able to have more contact across faith traditions here.
Now, this is basically the result of the growing diversity in our society, wouldn't you say?
Part of that is, and of course in a community like Muncie, when you got a university community, and then also in the medical community, you have a lot of variety among the physicians. So.
I see.
And I've had some good friendships with several of the Muslim physicians in our community who I consider friends. And I remember a couple of years ago, a doctor who was Hindu stopped me in the hallway and mentioned that his mother was sick back home in India, and he asked me if I would pray for her.
I see, right.
And that seemed to just be a normal, natural interchange in the hallway.
Now, you offer some services at Ball Memorial Hospital. By services, I mean
we do some worship
services.
Yeah, we have.
Services.
Yeah, the main opportunities to become interfaith are we do a memorial service twice a year, and this is where families are invited to come back and attend the service, to remember a loved one that had passed away. And
is this connected with the hospice program?
No, it's not. No. I'm chaplain for the hospital. There's a separate chaplain for the hospice program, and they do a service similar to this. But this is for families of people who have lost loved ones in the hospital side, emergency room or up on the floor.
And how often is this done?
Twice a year.
Twice a year?
And over a 6-month period. And we generally have about 600 deaths per year. And so there would be about 300 names. With the HIPAA restrictions now, we can't broadcast the names. But there'd be about 300 individuals who'd be remembered at each service.
So when you have one of those services, how do you approach it? Thinking that you probably have people from a variety of religious traditions.
And also, we have a variety of religious traditions represented in the staff who participate.
Right.
And we think it's important to make sure that every staff member who wishes to be a part of this should be free to participate regardless of their tradition. What we usually do is, at the beginning of the service, we'll say something to the effect that this is an interfaith service. We may not represent every faith tradition that's in the group of people that are being remembered, but we want to be inclusive. And we have invited people to come and speak, and each person will speak out of their own tradition, out of their own language.
Right.
So a person who's Buddhist will speak in that context. A person who's Christian will use, things and languages, the language of their own faith. And I remember the first time we did this, I was wondering how this would go over, how it would play in Muncie. Because I realized that probably most of the group would be a mainstream Christian, because that's the demographics of the community. And I wondered how they would react to a Muslim speaker or to a Buddhist speaker. To me, it seemed like the group was very responsive and very appreciative. I think there's something about grief that enables us to come together anyway.
Right. Yes, that's what we've noticed in the Muncie Interfaith Fellowship, that when we get people together and we start talking on a very personal level, setting aside dogma and all other things that are associated with religion, we're all going through the same difficulties in life. We all have the same joys in the sense that we have people celebrate when they give birth to a child, people grieve when they have the loss of a loved one, people have sickness to go through, and so forth. And so
we all grieve. We don't all grieve the same way.
Right.
We're all spiritual, but we're not all spiritual in the same way.
Right.
And but when you are able to, I think, create an environment where you can be yourself and give other people permission to be yourself, then there's a connection there.
On the deep level of feeling, there's a connection that is very much established, I think. Right.
Yeah. I remember a Muslim physician who went through pretty much of an ordeal to come to this country, and in his experience, he lost friends and loved ones who died in some of the struggles that he went through.
I see.
And when he spoke at the memorial service, he mentioned that, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. People connected with that, and he said, I've not lost a loved one here, but I can relate to what you're going through because of what I have experienced.
Right.
And people connected with that. I remember a Buddhist speaker talking about feeling the presence of her family member after they had passed away, and that was a source of comfort. People can connect with that.
Yeah.
My sense is when we share what we think, that usually divides us. But when we share what we've experienced,
that's good, or what we feel. This is, I guess, a point that we like to make, in that has it been your experience that when people come together in an interfaith setting, that there can be a deepening of the experience? A lot of criticism is that it just waters it down. How do you respond to that? What is your experience with that?
Well, I have to be personal again. When I was younger, I used to think if I ever reached this point, what I would be watered down. But I find that for myself as Baptist, as Christian, those things are very deep and very real to me. Also, I found that I can appreciate and learn from somebody else's experience as well. And I guess what it is the experience is the key.
Right.
And my experience is valid and meaningful and powerful. I don't lose that. but also I think that enables me to understand and learn from and appreciate the experience of someone else.
You mentioned you had a daily devotional moment in the morning at 9:15. Is that attended by people in the hospital? Is that open to people in the hospital?
It's open to people in the hospital. Generally, that represents the mainstream demographics. And our philosophy has been that each person who participates can be who they are and say what they are.
Right. So in that particular, what is that? About how long does that last?
It's usually about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. So in the 10 or 15 minutes, you have someone come from Christian tradition, you have someone come, say, from the Islamic tradition.
Usually
and someone come from the Jewish
predominantly
tradition.
Christian in that particular experience. The two main experiences that would be interfaith would be the memorial service, and then we'll do like a Thanksgiving service. And if you do a Christmas Eve service in the hospital chapel, that's going to be in a more Christian context.
Sure, yeah.
But if you do a service on the 4th of July.
So if you're conducting one of those 9:15 service or 9 to 9:15 service, and you see someone from the Christian tradition come in, someone from the Jewish tradition come in, someone from the Islamic tradition come, how then would you conduct that particular 15 minutes?
Probably a better way to answer that would be if I'm visiting a patient from a different tradition. That's probably more where that kind of interchange happens. And that does happen. I've recently visited a Muslim patient. A family member called in from out of town, said, I know you're Christian, but I want you to go pray for my family member. And generally, the basic pastoral rule has always been to listen to feelings, let the patient take the lead.
Yes.
I think the same thing applies to spirituality. You let the patient take the lead. You may even ask the patient, how can I meet your needs spiritually? Or is there any specific needs that you have here? And also to listen to patient stories and hear their experiences. What was it that changed? If you're talking with somebody who's a recovering alcoholic, what was it that prompted you to try to do something about this?
I see.
And usually there's some kind of deep spiritual experience that's connected with significant change.
It's connected with the struggle.
Something happens where they become, there's an awareness of the transcendence that has power to help them get through the difficult times in life.
Very good. Well, we'd like to thank you very much for being with us today on Converging Streams, and we wish you the very best in the very meaningful ministry that you have as the chaplain of Ball Memorial Hospital.
Well, thank you.
We have been speaking with Reverend Robert Burton, chaplain of Ball Memorial Hospital in Muncie, Indiana. Regardless of our cultural or religious tradition, we all, at certain times in our lives, seek the healing presence of the divine, which has the power to transform us and give us strength to endure an illness, or the difficult times when we must grieve the loss of a loved one. Independent of how we seek to understand, appealing to the divine spirit that unites us all brings meaning to our experience, and in time enables us to grow more completely in the fullness of God's love as we continue our lifelong spiritual journey. Thank you for joining us for Converging Streams.
Thank you for listening to Converging Streams, Interfaith Fellowship in Our Modern World. Our program is a production of the Muncie Interfaith Fellowship, with content and financial support from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Muncie and technical support from radio stations WCRD and Work FM. Most importantly, we thank you, our listeners and followers, for your support. To connect with Converging Streams, including listening to our entire catalog of past programs, getting our latest new content, and making your own contribution to this program, visit our website, convergingstreams.org. Converging Streams is produced by Tony Piazza, George Wolfe, and Thomas Perchlik. Thank you for listening and have a pleasant week.